Good evening, Redwall survivor. Foxpen here, recording from the middle of nowhere, Ontario, and coming at you with a couple more reviews for Mossflower Odyssey 4, The Beasts in the Crater, top 30 applications. So we're going to do The Beast Driven by Revenge today, and we have three lovely candidates. A rat, a fox, and a stoat. So a little more species variation than in some other categories. Not that there's anything wrong with, having a bunch of voles or foxes running around. Something I keep noticing popping up actually in the reviews that are going on in the forum is the species spread. We've got a lot of commonalities, and or I should say actually there's a trend here, like a lot of vermin are in here applying for these categories as opposed to your standard good beast species. But, this happens pretty much every contest. There's always there's always one species domination. Usually it's mustelids just because, there's so bloody many of them, but you usually get a few more weasels or a few more ferrets or pine martens than normal, and they always tend to be female, and... but there's so many foxes, and we have a lot of weasels and stoats and ferrets and rats. But that's okay, if that's the trend of the day, that's the trend of the day. Personally, so long as the story turns out to be a good story, I don't really care. So I'm not gonna put anyone down for, we have, for instance, there's two voles in the Gifted Gab category. I'm not gonna put anyone down for, you couldn't have come up with a better species, frankly, I don't think it's relevant to the competition. So, just going to start my reviews on that note today, because I don't want any applicants worried that they could have been a little more creative with their species. If you like to ride a fox, ride a fox. If you like to ride a weasel, ride a weasel. If you like to ride a mouse, ride a mouse. And if everyone else happens to like it, well, okay, so what? Anyways, we're going to start with The Beast Driven by Revenge, Silas Hetherton. Silas Hetherton is a 42-year-old male rat. And let's get going. Okay. Debtor's prison was never kind to its inhabitants. Even the sturdiest of beasts wasted away within. The young and weak, therefore, had little hope. Silas Hetherton stood before the graves of three such beasts, his wife and two children. There should have been 4 markers, but the stillborn babe his wife had birthed was interred elsewhere, nameless and forgotten. The rat wept, tearing the whiskers from his face. 10 years he had worked his paws raw, toiling for pittance in a system nigh impossible to escape, but he had had a reason to persevere. Every hour, every blister, and every resulting coin was put towards freeing his family, yet one by one they had perished, and there was none to blame but himself and fate. Dry, unfeeling fate that sucked the water from his fields and turned his crops to dust 2 years in a row. After the initial drought, he'd had to borrow money to plant again as well as feed and clothe his family, but the second year had deceived them with its piles of snow and early rains. A snowy winter usually meant plenty of runoff and a bountiful harvest. Indeed, the grain sprouted quickly and plentifully, but then the drought returned, and the crops all failed. Silas left the potter's field, wandering without purpose or hope. Had he given up the first year and sold the farm, they would have been impoverished, but at least they would be alive. After a while, the rat found himself at the center of the busy town, gazing up at the gallows. A field mouse pulling a cart heaped with dirty laundry paused upon sight of him. "Silas Hetherton?" The rat turned his dull stare on the other rodent. Recognition kicked in at last, bringing a name to his cracked lips. "Oh, well?" The mouse had owned the next farm down. He looked about as wasted and worn as himself. "You're a launderer?" The mouse shrugged. "One does what one must to get by. Haven't seen you around in years. Heard you were sentenced to bond labour up at Chesterton." "Aye," Silas acknowledged. "Shouldn't have put so much faith in the land, I suppose. Failed us all, didn't it?" He glanced up at the laden cart. "Turns out it wasn't the land, actually." The mouse's mouth tightened with a humorless smile. "What do you mean?" asked the rat. "Oh, it was a real scandal. I heard you weren't exactly in a place to hear about it, though. Found out a beaver bought a piece of forest land further up the east incline and dammed up Burfield Creek after the first drought, so the melt-off that usually irrigated our fields was hoarded and diverted." Silas stared at the mouse, unmoving. As you know, Orwell continued, I held out through the worst of it, irrigating my crops with well water. But it was hard work filling those tanks and moving them up and down the fields every day. I threw out my back, and then at harvest we barely broke even. It was this beaver fellow, Blasio Timberfell, who approached me with an offer. It was hardly enough, but I knew I wouldn't survive another year like that. The mouse scratched his head fur and pulled out a flea. I learned later that Timberfell had already bought up everything else in our little valley. Your farm, Janice's, Skiff Farrell's plot, and even old Clarkson's. All at bargain prices. Then he broke down the dam and sold it all later for 3 times profit. Silas felt his heart race and his breath quicken. His livelihood, his farm, 10 years of his life, his children and his wife had all been lost because of one beast's greed. Where's the villain now? He hissed darkly. Orwell sighed. Oh, he's long gone. Trust me, plenty of us would love to take a stab at the glutton. Ruined a lot of lives, he did. But he vanished, and it's up to us to pick up the pieces and rebuild. The mouse clapped a paw to Silas's shoulder with some affection. Still got mouse to feed, after all. The rat looked away. And speaking of mouse to feed, I better get these bundles to the wash-house. The mouse gave him a nod. Fare thee well, old friend. Silas watched him leave, then struck out east towards the upper slope, where Burfield Creek now flowed unimpeded. He would find this Timberfell character, whatever it cost, and slay him. So there you have Silas Hetherton. This is a very potent application just because, like, wow, this rat has had it rough. I thought Blue Yarnell had it rough. Poor Silas. See, he really, he's been kicked around, I think, by fate. Cold, unfeeling fate that dried up his crops and wrecked his life. But fate turns out to be a conniving beaver. What? I bet he has a saucy French accent, too. This is a good app. This is a really well-constructed app. Everything about it flows really smoothly. It's very well-paced. You get to the point. You get the explanation right off the bat of why he wants revenge. It's not abrupt because you've been given his horrible backstory. So when you see this, this is what caused all this misery, and he vows revenge. I'm kind of rooting for him. I want him to find this beaver and gut him. I do. Screw that beaver, man. Feed him to the wolves. It ruined poor Silas's life. There's description in this app that just sets a perfect scene. Starting with debtor's prison, right away your imagination is taken into a dark place. So the mood is set very well in this application, is I guess what I'm trying to say. I like how even though you're spoon-fed exposition through, your dialogue, at least it's, it's delivered in a way that's like, it's perfectly relevant. This guy has gone home after getting out of the workhouses, and this other friend he used to know, hey, it's my old neighbor, and here's, how are you? Here's what's going on. I'm going to be oblivious to your hardship and just, keep going, and there you go. So the dialogue is delivered very naturally, so it's not like, you don't feel like you're being spoon-fed, even though you are. I like this application. I do. There's nothing really that I want to fault it for. Except, the old age pitfall of revenge. Once you get revenge, what do you do now? So Silas needs to have a purpose beyond revenge once he's in the arena. Definitely form some bonds. I'd suggest his character be, play his heart on his sleeve, because his story is truly tragic. And if he's got the drive to avenge his family, maybe he'll do well in the ring. If he gets the people on his side, the audience, the other gladiators, this character could prove to be a sympathetic anti-hero almost. So it's very revenge is a very tricky topic to write. It can be very cliche, and I don't know if Silas will go down that path or if he's going to do something even more interesting than his application, which, if you haven't figured out by now, I really enjoyed. But I'm excited for Silas. It's got my blood pumping. This is the first reading I've done in a few days, so it's really great to come back and see this strong an application right off the bat. I'm not gonna say who I'm voting for in this category because I'm not entirely sure, but Silas is who I'm leaning towards right now. And I hope I'm going to be able to explain myself with the other readings of the applications, or rather with the other applications that I'll be reading. And moving right along on that note, we have Altra Gnawear. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this character's name correctly at all. The G in front of Gnawear, I don't know if it's supposed to be pronounced or if it's silent like in Nasty Nork. But I'm just going to say her name is Altra Gnawear, and to the author of Altra, if I'm mispronouncing your character's name, I'm really sorry. Maybe you could clear it up somehow in the competition if you get in? Just, I don't know, if you could do me that favor. Anyway, Altra is a 20 seasons old female fox, and she wants it to be noted that she's a silver fox. Once again, like I said with Blue, and I also want to take a moment to apologize to Blue. I wasn't familiar with what a cross fox was. I thought you meant crossbreed, which should have been written as X fox. Cross fox is actually a coat variation. I've seen cross foxes around actually, and I just assumed they were a wonky looking gray fox because we have gray foxes in Ontario and they're kind of weird. If you saw one, you might actually do a double take and not realize you're looking at a fox. You could easily mistake it for a coyote if you weren't familiar with it. So, however, the point that I made about Blue and the cross fox, it's not necessary. Same thing here with the silver fox. It's not really necessary. You can always get it out in the competition, or if it's just completely irrelevant whatsoever. If you get into the competition, Vizon does some lovely avatars, and if you ask nicely, she could probably alter an avatar of a fox to be silver instead of a red fox. Or another artist could do it for you. But I don't think knowing the color of your pelt is relevant whatsoever to the application. So it's information that we don't need. I guess it helps the imagination as you're reading. The character name, category, species, age, gender section of the application doesn't count towards the 750 words. So really, I guess it is a place to put a little ditty of irrelevant information and get away with it. But, once again, I don't like it. I don't like seeing it there. I don't think it's necessary. But that's just me. Anyways, Altra Gnawear stood in the doorway of the inn, eyeing the contents of the bustling great room. Many low beasts were gathered, whispering together about their petty lives and vain happenings. Altra felt the bile rise to the back of her throat. If her need for information were not so desperate, she would never have stepped footclaw in this disgusting place. Anger raced through her, causing her cold, yellow eyes to blaze as she remembered her purpose for coming here. She took her revulsion in claw and stepped inside, making for the bar that only came up to her hips in the back. The occupants of the small, grimy tavern hushed as she passed, staring in awe at her passing. Altra smiled to herself, knowing why they stared. She stepped up to the bar, the shriveled little ferret behind it craning his head back to wonder at her height. She glared down her muzzle at him, allowing him to feel her superiority for a moment, then snarled, "Give me a drink!" The stupid low beast gaped, then scrambled for a large burrow which he tapped. He shoved the full, foaming mug at her, which she examined carefully, looking much different than the sharp bruise of her home up north. "You're a long way from home, vixen," came a snide voice beside her. Repressing a growl, Altra turned to see a red fox waiting beside her, his eyes twinkling in mischief. Her ears pinned back in outrage, causing her clan symbol to sway, and her eyes narrowed. Did he think that because they both shared brush, that they were of the same species? Did he not see her dark fur? The spear, held casually at her side, whipped around to tickle the tip of his nose. The red fur fox grinned, ignoring the quavering squeaks of the ancient bar beast. "You're of the Slovak clans up north, ain't you?" He slanted his eyes to the earring that she kept in her left ear. "Of the Shadowtail clan, I see." Altra's lips peeled back from sharp fangs. "What would you know of my clan scum?" she spat. His grin widened. "Mayhaps it's been told to me, a tale or two of a tragedy in the shadows." Altra's ears flattened against her skull, flashes running through her mind of burnt timbers, blood-splashed snow, and the horrifying sight of a white-tipped black brush hung high for all who passed to see. Before she realized quite what she had done, the red furred turncoat was sprawled in the dust outside the tavern, and the razor-sharp tip of her spear had sunk slightly into his heaving chest. She was satisfied to see that the smug look had been wiped off his face, and she showed her fangs in malevolent glee, the leather-wrapped haft squeaking as she tightened her grip. "I know where he is!" The dog before her gasped, eyes flicking down in terror to the thin line of blood that dyed the white of his chest. Altra paused. "You lied, dog," she snapped, straightening for the final push to end his miserable life. It was impossible that he should have the very thing she came for. The other quickly spat in his paw, shaking his head vigorously as he held out the damp limb. "No lie," he rasped, gripped the threatening spear with the dry claw to keep it steady. "The crater, where fights are seen every week, could greatly appeal to one such as he." His strange brown eyes met her gold ones, "especially if he has been there before." They ignored the gathering crowd, staring into each other's eyes. Altra was torn, wishing to punish her tormentor, but afraid that he spoke truth. Finally, she jerked back, and her victim's spitless paw leaked as badly as his chest. He pressed hurt paw to wounded chest, keeping the other paw outstretched. "You will take me to this crater," Altra commanded. Those brown eyes seemed to harden, but his lopsided smile did not diminish, and the paw did not drop. Cringing inwardly, Altra finally lowered herself to make the fox's pact with him, spitting into her own, then lifting him to his feet. "There are some things I need to retrieve first," he told her, ever grinning. So there's Altra. Okay, so her coat color does come up in the app. So everything I said about blue and Altra with fur color in their applications has come back to bite me. Her fur is actually, a part of this vixen's identifying feature, Altra. So okay, you got me. I'll give you that one. Touche. A few things with this application. I don't like to comment on spag or formatting because formatting could just be when Zevka converted the applications to the board. But there are some issues here. There's Altra's lips peeled back from sharp fangs. It starts with quotations, but then, she says, "What would you know of my clan scum?" She spits. So that obviously, that's a typo. That's spag. There's some spelling errors. Some sentences that aren't clear, some hanging prepositions. So, Altra, when you get in, definitely take your time. Don't rush things. Silly little mistakes like these make me think, okay, maybe this was a last-minute application that someone thought of. I did that, I do that, and no doubt those applications didn't make it in because, well, they were last-minute applications that I maybe read over once after finishing and just decided, okay, now or never, right? You will get voted out on spag if you make silly errors. Eventually people will get sick of it. It's competition. We try to write at a professional level, so just keep your eye on that. Stuff happens. We all make spelling errors and spag errors in our chapters, but just that's an error that you can easily avoid. Let me see, what else did I want to say about this? We don't really know what happened to her, but we can assume it's bad. Something happened perhaps to her clan, or maybe to her included in that clan incident. She's fighting for revenge for that incident, so when she gets in, she's going to have to flesh this out, and aside from that, we really don't know too much about her. She's a bit of a snob, so, she obviously holds her clan in high regard if they still exist, or if their, honored place in her mind and memory is just nostalgic fabrication for what she's lost in her life. That I don't know, that could actually be an interesting plot point. So, a little room to work with this character. It's not just like she's after revenge. It could be she's after revenge, but then she discovers revenge isn't worth it. Or, she shouldn't be nearly as proud of her heritage as she should be, and maybe she learns to be ashamed or keep secrets, or maybe she just learns to live her own life eventually. I like clan symbolism. I like that her ear piercing marks her as part of a clan. There's another character that has clan markings. Jarl from the Traveler category has tattoos. So that's always, something that you can get other beasts to notice, get other writers to notice, to make connections, is just obvious physical traits like that. Let me see. There was something. I can't seem to remember what it was. Oh yeah, she doesn't know what the creator is. You will take me to this creator, Altra commanded. And then it's inferred that this fox NPC who might be helping her might actually be tricking her. Or who knows? Who knows, right? We don't know. So, when she gets to the creator, she could be like, oh, hey, screw revenge. I like this killing for fun, fame, and glory. Or, oh, this is barbaric. I shall help people escape and go back to their lives, and I don't know. So, the fact that she doesn't know what this creator is it means right off the bat that this character is going to be stepping into an unknown world where anything could happen. So, that's cool. I know I sound pretty lofty when I say that, but that is kind of cool that she doesn't even know what the creator is. So not every application has people going into the creator willingly, but they might know what it is, or they could have heard of it, or they're volunteering for it, or they're just, who knows. It just when I like an application that ends like this, because it just kind of gives the character more leeway to do more things that surprise us as the audience. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap up Altra, because I really don't have too much to say about this app, aside from that there were spag errors. They did throw me off a little bit when I was reading it the first time, but it's not a major thing. Once again, just don't do it in competition. Yeah. So, that's Altra, and we're gonna move on. I know I don't sound too impressed with Altra, but just, compared to Silas, I wasn't nearly as excited about Altra as I think I could have been, had I maybe read her first. Her motivation for revenge isn't quite as clear. You just get that hint of what's going on, and I don't know, this whole category is, we know you want revenge, but, by merit of being in this category, we know you want revenge. Why do you want revenge? I think would have been a more fun path to explore with this character. But that can all be addressed in competition, so, this character is one of potential. So, I'm afraid I don't have much to say about her. So I'm gonna move on now. And now we have Tope, Benworth. His name is Tope because he's dope. I don't know if he's actually dope or not, but he's 23, he's male, and he's a Stoat. So ladies, hey, if you like hankering for revenge. Anyways. Move aside, a voice shouted in a drunken slur. You well-headed lummox. The Stoat's short ears perked up, his dark eyes now staring at the grey cat before him, bedecked in a coat of richly embroidered green velvet, and walking in a less than straight line. Despite the cane in the feline's hands, Tope ignored the order. Taking an extra long step, the cat blocked Tope's path, looming over him in what should have been an intimidating manner. The rich cat flexed his claws. You looking for a fight? Not usually, Tope replied casually, but I don't run from 'em. Don't you know who I am? Pointing a claw at his chest, he boasted, I don't care. For unruffled, breathing even, and expression even, he stepped forward. Well, why you? The cat leaned back and swiped his cane at Tope's right arm. Tope leaned forward. Hardwood connected with thick muscle, but the stoat did not flinch or cry out. Gradually, a small, dangerous smile raised the sides of his mouth, and a fire was lit behind his eyes. One practiced motion put the short club at his belt in his left paw, and a moment later the cat's cane flew out of his grip, landing in a nearby pile of broken boards. Tope grabbed the front of the fine green coat, shifted his weight to his right foot, and dragged the cat forward, throwing him headlong into the wooden wall of the tavern. The cat staggered, eyes wide and disoriented. Tope mercilessly kicked a foot into the beast's gut before striking his skull with his club. The rich drunk crumpled to the floor, blood seeping out of a cut at his temple, his breathing shallow. Tope forced himself to pause, to squash the impulse to guarantee the cat never woke up. Flexing his paws, he took several deep breaths, the red glow in his vision subsiding before he bent down and removed the feline's green velvet purse, wiping a bit of blood off of his club on the cat's coat at the same time. Standing up, he faced the young river otter and squirrel maid that shivered fearfully a few feet away. He noted the squirrel's swollen right eye and the way the otter favored his right leg. "Would you consider your master a vile beast?" Neither responded. "This is an important question. Is your master a despicable excuse for a beast or no?" "He's not going to hear your answer." Stepping back, the squirrel nodded fearfully. Tope assumed as much, but the answer still reassured him. A chorus of "A broom for morn sweepin'" started up in the tavern as he grinned and pulled the white and black leather pouches from his belt. Opening the white one, he removed 4 small pebbles and stared at them intently. "Well, what are those for, sir?" the otter asked quietly. Most beasts were intrigued by the bags of rocks that accompanied Tope Benworth wherever he went. Tiny, ordinary, and seemingly useless, they somehow attracted of attention. "In a manner of speaking," he responded, "these are my fate." Predictably, the two had no response. Tope explained, "There's a balance in every beast's life, light and dark, good and bad, right and wrong. A beast can only do so much good or bad afore he's judged and things happen to him. I just happen to be one of the few who keep track of the score." To clarify, he showed them the stones. "Beating a beast half to death ain't good for no one. Probably lose about 4 stones for that." He dropped 4 grey stones into the black bag. Plucking one back out, he held it up. "Seeing as a lesson were in order, so I suppose that's a point back to me." Putting another stone in the black into the white, he casually threw the cat's purse to the slaves. The two stared at their master's possession, possibilities floating through their heads as Tope put the pouches back at his belt and readjusted the pack on his shoulders. Before he could resume his leisurely pace, the squirrel asked, "What happens when one bag gets full?" "Don't let the black get all full, so I don't right know. But when the white gets full of good deeds." He let the unspoken words hang in the air as he stepped away from the slaves. Leaving the alleyway, he thought of the 2 beasts left on his list, the only 2 for whom he'd not properly tipped the scales. "When the white gets full of good deeds," he repeated to himself for the 100th time, "I get to kill a good beast." So there's Tope. Cool. I thought of something. I was reading Tope's, something in the first half of the application struck me that also affected Altra. There's a little bit of redundancy going on. Some words are used very close together, either in the same sentence or the same paragraph, and it makes for a bit of an awkward read. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So to see the same word used multiple times so close together, it's just, it seems a little lazy. Anyways, we're going to move on though, because really I only saw it like once or twice in each application. I don't want to give the impression that Altra and Tope are lazy. So here in Tope, Tope is an aggressive fellow. He says he's not looking for a fight, but at the same time, he really doesn't run from the fight. He reacts very quickly and almost happily to the threat of the cat. The corners of his mouth slowly slide up when he realizes, hey, he gets to beat someone up. So I think maybe he is looking for a fight, and he's just kind of using the calmness that he goes about it with, the almost militant serenity he approaches this fight as a way to justify playing with his pebbles. These pebbles, they were introduced after the action of the application, so they're rather abrupt, and they very quickly consume this character. He keeps track of the good and the bad that he does with a black pouch and a white pouch, so yin and yang, right? The pebbles, I gotta say, they don't feel like they'd be a lasting gimmick once Tope got to the crater. They'd probably be confiscated. I can't imagine anyone would give him pebbles unless, like, he chooses a sling or something. So he'd have to find another way to keep count in the balance. This could be an interesting interaction with the character Maeve for the healer category, because her character was all about the balance as well. Also, these pebbles, they would require some rules, and right in the application, these rules are established as being rather vague. You know, he says that beating a beast half to death is about 4 pebbles removed. But because this cat apparently deserved the beating, that means he did good, and so he gets to take a pebble back and put it into the white bag. So his commitment to his own rules leaves something to be desired, which means that these pebbles really don't mean as much as they should for this character. You know, what determines how many marbles are worth what kind of crime anyway? Like he says, beating a beast half to death is 4, but because the cat deserved it, he removes a whole pebble. So what's murder versus theft? What if you're stealing to feed a hungry child is theft? Oh, and you know what? He steals from the cat too. I wonder if that was included in those 4 pebbles. It doesn't say specifically, but he takes the cat's purse and gives it to the cat's slaves. Theft is wrong. Yeah, the cat was a drunk dick, mind you, and people get dickish when they're drunk, and he beats a slave. So yeah, he definitely had a beating coming to him, and he deserved to get beaten, but did he also deserve to get robbed? And in that case, you know, is that 2 pebbles that should have come out? So these pebbles really, they measure black and white, but they don't account for the gray, and the character isn't committed to them in the application. So I feel that they're a gimmick, and I think they're going to get boring, or worse, they're going to get forgotten about quickly in the crater. In the application, the character Tope, he's centric around the pebbles, but we don't even know why he needs enough good Chris to unleash what I can only assume to be horrendous and grisly vengeance upon his foe. And then, once again, like with Altra, he wants to kill a good beast, and that's pretty much the only intriguing bit about this character's backstory that we're afforded. We don't get anything about his backstory except for these pebbles, this black and white pouch of pebbles. So we know he wants to kill someone, a good beast, someone he considers a good beast. I don't know if he's a particularly good judge of character, but there you go. So it's like it's like a moment in his life. We're not actually fed any information about why he wants revenge. We know he wants revenge. He's in this category, so he must want revenge. And he's counting morals, good and bad. So, you know, he's something's going on upstairs where he is driven to earn this revenge that he wants. He wants to earn it. But we don't know what it is. We don't know what happened. We don't know who he's after. I don't know if this is clever on Tope's half and he's leaving this open so that when he gets into the competition, the author can be strategic about this good beast that Tope wants revenge against. You know, what happened in the past to make him want revenge. This could be a strategic move, and it could actually work very, very well in Tope's favor. But I think the pebbles were the wrong thing to focus on in the application. I think it was gimmicky. I wasn't really interested. It kind of read like an old spaghetti western where there's a character in a black hat and he comes in, he plays with cards. It's just something to make the character stand out a little that doesn't really affect the character too much. Like, will these pebbles affect the storyline? I hope so. If you get in, you have to make these pebbles really work for you. Otherwise, they just become a gimmick. This was a well-written app. Couple little spag issues, but, nothing really, who cares about spag? This character, he seems like he could be really, really interesting, but the application just didn't do it for me. The pebbles, if he had been playing with the pebbles maybe at the very beginning of the application, they would have been more relevant, but it's a space squid out of left field when they're introduced. It's just like, okay, he counts good deeds, that's interesting, why does he need pebbles? Why can't he just keep tracking his head? What, doesn't he have a moral compass kind of thing? And all these points I'm raising too that are really not in Tope's favor. They could totally be strewn in Tope's favor. Like this, someone might find the pebbles extremely intriguing. Me personally, I don't. I think they're a little too gimmicky, and I don't think they worked very well. I kind of want to know, why does he want to go to such measures to kill a good beast? So I suppose I'd have to vote for him to find out, so that he gets into the competition and he tells us. So yeah, anyway, I'm gonna end on that note. The beast driven by revenge, Silas, Altra, and Tope. Congratulations, y'all. Congratulations on getting in the top 30. And I think I'll be doing the beast with the gift of gab next. So we'll see y'all then. Have a great evening. Foxpen out.
Yee yee!